Ramallah Hussein. I am coordinator of the Interfaith Youth Network for the Religions for Peace UK. And here I would like to particularly thank my speakers, as well as the Board of Trustees of Religions for Peace UK for establishing the Religions for Peace UK Youth Network program. So we are able to have this different variety of topics of webinars and have them available for you. This webinar is a continuation of My Faith and Environment, which is a series of online webinars that we have started 2 years ago. So My Faith and Environment is a safe environment that we particularly wanted to offer to young people to share positive youth response with sharing their environmentally sound practices, saving our world, causing big environmental issues around the world. This is the fourth part of it. The first part of it was dedicated to celebrate United Nations World Environment Day, and it was registered under the United Nations World Environment Day Reimagine, Recreate, Restore Generations Restoration event. The second, My Faith and Environment, was a continuation of it because we wanted to give space and opportunity to different young people from different faith backgrounds, as well as from different organizations, so they can share their work. And the third, My Faith and Environment, was dedicated to recognize the learnings of COP26, which had taken place in the UK, Glasgow, and we had many special names sharing about why different COP series started, as well as the learnings after COP26. And today's event is Youth Action, and my speakers will share their understanding the impact of science and sustainability through climate mobilization. We are going to be joined by Greshma Raju tonight, Dr. Leland Werden, and Merylene Chitharai. So Greshma's topic is going to be in climate change and human conflict. Dr. Leland's topic is going to be in global restoration movement from an ecological perspective. And Merylene's topic will be about planting seeds of love for Mother Earth, and she will share about youth climate advocacy and leadership.
I'm so happy to be here with you all today, and special thanks to RFP UK and UK Interfaith Youth Network for hosting this wonderful webinar. And I'm here to learn from you all and also listen to you and your opinions on how to mobilize young people for interfaith youth action, especially on climate change. And I'm Greshma. I'm joining today from India, and I'm environmental peace builder and founder of EcoPeace Teen Café. It's an online dialogue platform for teenagers, and also we are expanding to more young people. And so that's about me. So today we are going to explore more about climate change as well as human conflict. Climate change and human conflict. Yeah, today we are going to talk about, I know almost everyone knows what climate change is, and we all are really care about climate change. So today we are going to look at how climate change cause human conflict, whether climate change is a big threat and create human conflict or not. So we are going to explore more deeply. Also, we are talking about role of environmental peace building and climate action. Then we will also look into EcoPeace Teen Café, my initiative, and how we are working for young people. And then we will explore how we can come together and act for better and peaceful world. So climate change. So before going to climate change, I would love to hear from you all how you define climate change. Can you please share it on the chat, or whether you affected by climate change crisis or not? So please feel free to share that on the chat.
For me, climate change means the changing weather every time. I cannot understand anymore which months are summer, which months are considered as winter, and which months are autumn now, because it just feels like every season it may be super cold as if winter, or super rainy as if it's really cold. And summer for me, it has changed now, and I feel like it starts from July and ends September or October.
Yeah. Kavun, share that climate change means global warming and disruption in ecosystem. And Husna said that shifts in weather pattern, rising temperature, and Merlin also shared that extreme weather conditions. We had okay. Merlin had floods in Durban last year that destroyed so many people, so many infrastructure, and 400 people died. Yes, like all over the world, we are experiencing climate change in one way or the other. So UNFCCC, United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change, states that climate change means a change of climate which is attributed directly or indirectly to human activity that alters the composition of the global atmosphere, and which is in addition to natural climate variability observed over comparable time periods. So we all know that there are changes happened in our climate and in our earth since its beginning. But since 18,000, we are seeing like 1,800 since we are seeing like immense change in climate and immense change in global atmosphere, and that happened due to the human activity. That's why we are really concerned about climate change and climate change related calamities. So these human activities are like burning fossil fuels and how that emits greenhouse gases that creates a blanket and traps sunlight that led to the rise in temperature. So increase in temperature makes issues worse, and we all are suffering in one way or the other. As Eda said, like we don't know which like which weather conditions we are having right now. So it's like I'm talking to you from Kerala. It's a southern Indian state. So we are expected rain since like June 1st. Normally, when we were children, when we go to school after the vacation, we when with umbrellas, but now it's it's no like when the school reopened, children were like sweating because of the heat. There were no like no rain, so that's how situations are going on these days. So it's very confusing, and also we are experiencing not just rising in temperature, but we are experiencing floods and unexpected cyclones, and also like there are many other climate related issues. We are going to discuss this question, like, does climate change cause conflict? I mentioned that climate change like led people to move from their places, but do you think climate change cause conflict? If you think yes, please type yes on the chat, and if you think climate change doesn't cause any conflict, please type no on the chat. So there are many yes in the chat. So yeah, let's dive deeper into that, like whether climate change cause conflict or not. Let's see that. So we are going to discuss two case studies today. One is from Sudan and one is from Syria. So Sudan, the first conflict is the first climate change conflict. In 2007, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said that the first conflict is because of the climate change. So the assumption is that when there is a water scarcity, that change because of the rainfall pattern resulting resulting due to the climate change led to many conflicts, and especially in Darfur conflict. And also research shows that the conflicts happened in sub-Saharan Africa are mainly because of the conflict arise due to the resource crisis and also due to the climate change related. When there is a heavy like temperature rising there are more conflicts occurred. So we can see the relation there, and also Sudan it has like more diverse ecological zones from desert areas in the north to the semi-evergreen tropicals in the south. So there is like diverse ecological zones, and also there are predominantly two groups of people who are agricultural workers and also pastoralists. So the agriculture people are mostly like ethnic Africans, and the pastoralists are more like Arabic ethnic. So then when there is like absence of training, they face kind of absence of resources, especially for their livelihood, that creates a tensions and conflict. Then it becomes to an ethno-religious environmental conflict. So this happened in Durban. So I would like to quote Ban Ki-moon, and he said that almost invariably we discuss therefore in a convenient military and political shorthand and ethnic conflict, putting Arab militias against black rebels and farmers. Look to its roots through and you discover a more dynamic, complex dynamic. Amid the diverse social and political causes, the Darfur conflict began as an ecological crisis, arising at least in part from climate change. So, impoverishment and human insecurity may rise as a result of climate change if preventive measures are not undertaken. So, now we are moving to Syria, and you can also see a conceptual model how climate change led to environmental change, and that led to movement of people and movement of people from rural to urban. And then there we have a resources lack of resources, then tensions may arise that can lead to civil war or anti-government protests. So yeah, we can see the climate change can be a threat. So when we discuss about the condition in Syria, we know that in 2011 there is a protest happened that was a peaceful protest, but the government suppressed it, and then it became a bloody conflict in 2011. Before that, we can see that from 2006 to 2010, Syria experienced a heavy drought, and government could not meet that basic needs. So the people are forced to move from rural area to urban area, and those urban areas were also poor. So people were really work hard to meet their needs, and still they couldn't meet their needs. So when there is anti-sentiment against the government were not support these people who are in need. So the humanitarian crisis were high, and there were like lots of challenges were there. So people decided to come out of the street and protest. And initially that was like a peaceful protest, but suddenly that became like armed violence and civil conflicts between the governments and rebels. So the rest is history. We saw that what happened in Syria, and people were forced to move from there, and millions of people were affected and becoming like refugees. So this all happened, and there are studies showing that not just like climate, we cannot say climate change is the main cause for all this. There are political and social causes are there. Definitely it's there, but climate change is a multiplier threat. So we need to address it. The former UN Special Envoy for Syria said that climate disruption was an amplifier and multiplier of the political crisis that was building up in Syria. So when we are talking about climate change, definitely we need to take climate actions. And before talking about climate action, I also wanted to mention environmental peace building. So in the beginning, I said that I'm an environmental peace builder and who is really keen about conserving and taking climate action. So environmental peace building comprises the multiple approaches and pathways by the management of environmental issues, and it integrated and support the conflict prevention and also the resolution process. So we can see it as an intersection between environment, peace, and security. And environmental peace building is working along with three dimensions, especially like security, livelihood, economy, and also political and social relations. So when we talk about security, it's mostly about how we share the resources, how we make sure that we are sharing the resources inclusively and sustainably, managing the resources to avoid conflict. And also when we talk about livelihood, we see that like we saw that in Sudan and Syria, when there is a absence of resources, there arises a conflict. So we need to make sure that livelihood security and also economic performance is the key to solve the issues. And otherwise, there is a chance of making more issues. And also political and social relations. We need to make sure that we use this challenge as an opportunity to connect and cooperate and create more initiatives to come together and solve these issues. This way, we can create more cooperation between countries and also institutions. So let's divert this challenge to an opportunity through our climate action. So even SDG 13 asks us to take urgent climate action to combat climate change and its impact. And here also I wanted to quote Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General. He said that climate actions in the 21st century is great opportunity to drive forward all the SDGs. So let's work together. And I also want to mention how we work together. Like we, as a part of EcoPeace Teen Café, work together for a more peaceful and sustainable world. So EcoPeace Teen Café, we started in 2021, like after the second wave of COVID in India. So here we are trying to create an inclusive safe space for young people to come together and share their voice and also encourage them to take actions for better and peaceful world. And this initiative is influenced by the Earth Charter principle. And Earth Charter is a document consists of 16 principles that formed in late 90s and after the Brundtland Commission. That's an ethical Earth Charter is an ethical guideline for sustainable development. I personally believe it's a living document. It acts like a visionary document that created by visionaries that has a voice every century. So I deeply influenced by the words in the preamble of Earth Charter that says we are once citizens of different nations and of one world in which the local and global are linked. Everyone shares responsibility for the present and future well-being of the human family and the larger living world. The spirit of human solidarity and kinship with all life is strengthened when we live with reverence for the gift of life and humility regarding the human place in nature. So this is the words that I deeply influenced and that helped me to create EcoPeace Teen Cafe for students in India initially. Then the movement is become like globally and we work with young people in Asia, Latin America and Africa and we seen like how people come together to take small actions that but I deeply believe these small actions are really counted and these actions can bring bigger changes in the society and we do like planned tree planting events and make sure that people come together and work together for a better world and be creating small moments of harmony, small moments of love and compassion. So that's how EcoPeace work and we are hoping that we can expand it to UK and Europe and work with more young people there and work for more environmental conscious and peaceful world. So we are ready to rise for climate and for our planet. As I mentioned, like we have to use this challenge as an opportunity to come together and work for cooperation, work for peace, and work for harmony. So every time we complain about what we don't have, but here nature gives us an opportunity to come together. Let's see climate change crisis as a positive thing to bring together people and share the peace with everyone. So when I said this, I really mean that like we witnessed how climate change bring people together. In 2004, when we had a calamity like tsunami, we have seen that how Southeast Asia handled it. People come together and they use that as an opportunity to cooperate and work together for the humanitarian crisis. And in my place, in my homeland, in 2018, we witnessed like a devastated flood that was first time in century. So that was kind of like a flood that completely distracted everyone's life. But we suddenly come up and we rise up with resources. When there is limited resources, people come together and find out the sources and share it with the people who are in need. So we saw that how floods bring together people and how that creates harmony in society and how that keeps on telling a story about like human and compassion. So I believe that this is an opportunity of this century to come together and act for our nature. So we know that the average global temperature are still on its rise. So we have to combat that by taking urgent actions and speed action. So let's unite for a peaceful and sustainable planet. Let's join together, and wherever you are, join for climate action. Let's act now. There is no planet B. Every decision matters, every minute matters, every moment matters. So think about your children, your grandchildren, and the children to come in. And we have to live a legacy of peace and legacy of environment friendly lifestyle for our generations to come in. So thank you so much. And once again, thanks to RFP UK.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and thanks for everyone for being here. I'm really excited to talk about some of our work focused on the global restoration movement and kind of considering how we can use our existing ecological knowledge to design better restoration projects. So I work with the Crowther Lab at ETH Zurich, and my background is in mostly tropical conservation and restoration. I've done a lot of work in Latin America, in Costa Rica, and in Mexico. And I joined the Crowther Lab 2 years ago now, and to kind of work with them on building a group on restoration ecology. And the Crowther Lab is a pretty incredibly disciplinary group. It's very rare that an academic institution has a lab that works across basically every single ecological field within the same group. So we have data scientists that solely focus on data analysis. We have theoretical ecologists. We have a communications team, and then there's kind of everything in between. And then the kind of more applied side of things is restoration ecology. And my colleagues there, Dr. Daisy Dent, Caro Bello, and Rebecca Cole, and I all work together on some restoration topics. And I'm going to give just an overview of that, and then basically end with a tool that the Crowther Lab created called Restore, that if anyone is interested in kind of getting more involved with the global restoration movement, if you aren't already, there's maybe some easy ways to kind of connect with projects through that. To follow up on that, I wanted to basically talk about the fact that maybe the most important thing that we can do is to protect and manage our existing forests and ecosystems, rather than focusing only on the areas in which we need to restore, because it's really time consuming and expensive to do restoration. So this is a figure that I like a lot. And essentially all of the internal bubbles mean the amount of climate mitigation, so the filled-in bubbles are the amount of climate mitigation you can get for $100 US. So you can see that by protecting and managing existing ecosystems, you can actually get quite a lot. But restoring ecosystems, the circle is a lot smaller. So it becomes much more expensive to do restoration. However, the outer circles, these not shaded ones, essentially represent the potential for climate mitigation with the actual approach. So while it's very expensive to do restoration, there is tremendous capacity to draw down CO2 and reduce the impacts of climate change. But first, we just need to make sure that we're prioritizing protection and management before we think about doing any type of restoration. But because we do need to do this restoration, we have some incredible initiatives, such as the Bond Challenge, where organizations and governments around the world have pledged to restore 350 million hectares by 2030. And in order to do this, we need all of the ecological and social knowledge that we possibly can to make sure that we're actually doing socially and ecologically responsible restoration. And what we focus on in the lab essentially is trying to help design the best restoration projects and connect organizations so that there's a lot more interchange between them rather than having people kind of working entirely on their own. Because in order to make this happen, obviously we need to work in big groups and we need to collaborate, and we need to basically just be learning from each other throughout this process because it's really complicated to restore ecosystems. And one tool that I wanted to mention, and I'll come back to this a bit more at the end of the talk about how you can potentially get involved through this, is Restore. And Restore is an open platform. It's hosted at restore.eco. And basically what it initially created to do was to map conservation and restoration projects around the world, and then also just help them have transparency about the work that they're doing, and then basically also help them to network, so to connect with other projects in their area. So essentially, you can go and Restore. It's completely free. And hopefully some of you already know about this, and you can put your projects on the platform and just essentially to show what you're doing. You can have a short description of it. And you can also use this to find other people that are working in your area. So for example, if you dial down closer, this is an example in Costa Rica in this really large scale payment for ecosystem services system in which farmers are given incentives for restoring and conserving their ecosystems. You basically can find projects in your area. So this would be kind of at the country level or at the state level, but then you can go much more narrowly down into what is happening on the ground for specific projects. And what this platform also does, if you have a project, it basically helps to democratize access to data. So typically, restoration or kind of ecological data sets are typically locked up and kind of hard to digest. And what the lab has done in creating Restore is basically allowed people that are working on the ground to get access to really just general ideas of what's going on at their site from global mapping products. So for example, at this site, you can see that there are over 5,000 plant species just generally in the area. There are many amphibians, maybe mammals and bird species. And you can look at other things like the climate and then the carbon drawdown potential of different project sites. So this can help with site planning and just getting a general idea of what's happening ecologically in a region. And you also through this get access to really high resolution satellite imagery. So you can see like this image here, kind of what's going on the ground. And also there's time lapses. You can see what's happened in the past. So what my colleague Rebecca Cole and I have done is built on this incredible database that Restore has created and created what we call the Global Experiments Network, or GEN. And what we're doing is helping to work with some of these projects that are on Restore to scale restoration experiments and synthesis projects so that we can kind of create these recipes of best practices for doing restoration and conservation around the world. And we do this in many ways. And just briefly, our main foci so far are looking at the different rates of ecosystem recovery with different approaches, building tools to prioritize the use of best restoration tools for certain contexts, and then also doing a lot of capacity building workshops where we help organizations that need a bit of help designing things like nurseries to understand how they can scale their initiatives, and then connect with other scientists and practitioners that are working in those areas. I'm going to go through some of these things just to give some examples of how this work goes, but basically have a network of restoration experiments that we're using across the world. We're also developing kind of indicators, so things that you can measure to understand the outcomes of these projects. And then we're doing a lot of surveys where we're connecting with organizations to understand about their work. So I'll give an example of that. And then finally, the outreach and capacity development that I mentioned, to then take all the knowledge that we've learned and then share it out to the world so that people can learn from all of their colleagues that are working in this movement. For those that aren't familiar, restoration basically can typically take two main forms. And we build these into buckets which are assisted recovery versus natural recovery. So assisted recovery would be something such as planted trees, and then natural recovery, which is something that ecosystems have a tremendous capacity to do, essentially is just removing the pressures. So for example, unnatural fires or cattle grazing that were restricting the ecosystem from recovering, and then just letting it naturally recover on its own. But a lot of organizations focus more on this assisted recovery side of things because it's easier to visualize and understand that it works. So we're working with organizations to also compare just natural recovery to their assisted recovery plots. So they install just a control plot where they allow things to recover on its own. And then we help them do comparisons between the two so that they can understand what areas do they maybe need to do some planting of trees, that they need to do some direct seeding, or what areas can they just kind of let the ecosystem recover on its own. And then we're also working with organizations to essentially help them think about other restoration experiments they can try. So we have colleagues that are doing essentially adding additional soil to rewild the microbiome in the soil. We have some experiments where people are adding agricultural waste as just copy waste that's typically not kind of used for restoration, and that can help to jumpstart recovery, but doesn't take as much resources as doing a really large scale implementation on the assisted side. And then we have some more involved experiments. So in areas where you basically need to do assisted recovery by doing some tree planting, we're helping to basically build different diversity mixes of species so that we can understand which ones are potentially best in tropical forest restoration. And so far, we've partnered or interviewed over 200 organizations since we started last year. And we're focusing right now on Central and South America, although this year we're hoping to move into different parts of the world, such as Southeast Asia and Africa, to kind of have a broader scope. But right now, we basically are working just on Latin America because it's still a huge, huge area. And this is where everyone in the restoration ecology group in the Crowther Lab works right now. And I just wanted to mention a bit on some of the survey information that we've had so far, because there's been some really interesting insights from this. So we did a really large scale survey of practitioners across Latin America that are working in restoration and got over 160 responses from 14 countries. And you can see all the countries listed here. And this is a wide range of organizations that are working in conservation and restoration. And what we're doing is just trying to get a snapshot essentially of what they're doing, understanding their restoration goals and how that they're evaluating their progress, that we can help them think about potentially how to do this more effectively. And then think about how their practices shift as the projects get bigger, and then also what influences their choice of practices for different interventions. So what we found so far on the left-hand panel, it shows that most organizations are working in tropical forests. This makes obviously sense because of the area in which we're surveying, and that cattle grazing agriculture are the primary causes of degradation. So that's the kind of context of the work. And then most organizations, so on the left-hand side, I'm showing all the different motivations that people have. On the top, you can see that conserving biodiversity is top priority, and also counteracting climate change is top priority. But then when you think about or take a look at what people are measuring, typically the monitoring is focused more on seedling survival and tree growth and much less on biodiversity. So if we want to understand how biodiversity is recovering, we need to think about simple ways that organizations can use to actually measure this. So we're doing some of that work now, but most people really don't have the time or the capacity to do these really complicated biodiversity surveys. So we're working to help them do that. Another really interesting thing that we found is that most organizations are using assisted restoration approaches, but then a lot of them shift to just natural recovery at scale. So what's happening in this figure isn't particularly important, but basically you can see that this natural regenerations, the lightest green, starts to increase once projects get really, really large. And that's really good because people are matching essentially what they do with larger scale projects. And they're thinking about, okay, we don't have to spend all this money doing really complicated tree planting when we don't need to. We can think about just letting ecosystems recover on their own when it's possible. So from what we found really this far from talking to a lot of organizations is that they want straightforward and standardized methods to measure their progress. So that's what we're working on creating now. And that people that are doing restoration in Latin America are using a mixture of approaches, but we really need to think about how to evaluate if assisted restoration is suitable for all cases where it's applied, because it's still the most commonly used approach. So planted trees can be really good in certain contexts, but it's not really necessary all the time. So we're trying to figure out what is best for certain areas and help people figure out how best to do that. So what we've done then is taken all of this knowledge and all of the work that we've kind of insights that we've gotten from everyone, and then help them and basically build these capacity building workshops. So essentially we had a workshop on innovations for restoration, and I'm going to talk really briefly on that later. And then we've done workshops on restoration monitoring, both online and in the field. And then also tree diversity, native tree diversity workshops. Most of these have taken place in Spanish because of where we're working, but we do have them in English too. So if anyone is interested in joining these for their work in the future, please reach out to me because we can add you to the mailing list, because generally we are probably having some more happen this year, although we're not totally sure of the timing. And then I just wanted to touch super briefly on some work that we've been doing recently to try to think about how we can use really simple practices to improve restoration. So what we did is we looked at all these different types of practices that people are using around the world. So this is a map of all the kind of studies that we looked at, where people added things like biochar, which is essentially just ash, mixes of exotic and or economic species with native tree species, thinking about doing high diversity plantings, thinking about planting trees in islands, adding soil to increase the microbiome. And we found that overall, generally all of these practices usually have really positive outcomes. And these are really simple things that people can use. So all the blue boxes at the top of the figure on the right essentially means that you have a better ecological outcome if you use one of these practices. And very rarely the practices actually lead to a negative or lower impact. So essentially, these are things that are relatively simple to do, which are just really small tweaks to how people do work that can help to really drastically increase carbon accumulation and things like biodiversity. So we're working on some best practices for how people can work this into mostly forest restoration, but also branching out into some kind of mangrove restoration as well too. And then for a really brief example of this, we've kind of found that things like agricultural waste, so an example of a study where they dumped a whole bunch of orange peels on tropical forest and basically showed on the right-hand side of the top picture, this is the forest regenerating much more rapidly than the left-hand side just by putting some agricultural waste there. And then the same example for dumping coffee pulp on the right-hand side, the faster recovery, and the left-hand side, the slow recovery. So just repurposing some of these resources that we have that maybe aren't used as strategically as we could make some really big differences in restoration outcomes. And we're basically just trying to increase awareness of the potential impacts of these projects, and also then doing some experiments to see what works and what doesn't. And I wanted to end this on potentially some ideas for how you all could get involved more. I know that a lot of people are already working in this space in this room, but if you're interested, I think Restore is a pretty incredible tool for getting a sense of what restoration and conservation is going on around the world. And they're just now starting to build additional features into this. So you can obviously zoom in anywhere on this map here, and you can see what projects are happening near you. But if you want to do a little bit more of a detailed search, you can click on this area, this box right here that says filters. And I think this will get a little bit simpler in the future, but right now this can pop up an advanced search. So you hit advanced site search. And then if you're looking to either volunteer or potentially contribute financially to a project, you can then filter directly by these different types of things that projects are looking for. And then you can type in the country that you're looking in. You can type in a lot of other stuff. This can all just happen, like I mentioned, just by kind of scrolling around the map. But if you're specifically looking for organizations that you could potentially volunteer for, this will help you kind of filter through that. Although there are quite a few organizations that usually take volunteers. So even if they don't mention that specifically on their Restore page, it's certainly worth reaching out to them. But just generally, in addition to potentially putting projects that you're involved in on Restore, if you're looking for basically getting more connected with the restoration and conservation movement, I think this is a really, really nice way to do this in your backyard, just in your general area. And then also if you're thinking about traveling somewhere and doing some good and doing some volunteering, this is a really nice way to just see the network and kind of incredible spread of projects. And with that, I just want to thank everyone.
Namaste and Jai Gurudev to everyone. It's been wonderful to listen to the other speakers, and I feel inspired and blessed to be here tonight. And thank you for the opportunity to be on this webinar to share about my reflective thoughts, my experiences, and about my youth climate work in South Africa. So my holy hope this evening is that whatever I share with you will inspire you with creative ideas for climate mobilization through youth climate advocacy and leadership. My work has been to make the connection between religion, spirituality, and climate change, and translate it into actions and service for the earth and for God. So before I share a presentation on our youth work, I wanted to give a background to the motivation behind it. So I strongly believe that it is action that drives us to hope. And when you observe and reflect on the climate crisis, I found it becomes very easy to criticize, blame the other, become despondent, and basically to sit in anger and in depression. And this is why angry activists make less strides in their climate work as compared to people of faith. People of faith are people of heart, people of vision, people of wisdom and intellect. And because we are doing the divine's work, our superpower is love, right? And we see the world differently, and so we can change the narratives. So when I pause, observe, and reflect, I'm always in awe and in wonder of the earth and of the various expression of God and its creation. And if you really look at nature and how the ecosystems function and how everything is interconnected, it just leaves me in reverence and in respect for Mother Earth. You will see how intricate and how intelligent the design of creation is. Like every creature, human, and part of creation has a role to play in this universe, and that we are not here to determine who is more important than the other. And so this brings humility to help us to understand that we need to live holistically with the earth and with God's creation. And you'll see that each and every religion teaches this, whether it's knowledge that is coming from a scripture, a saint, or a guru. So we can observe that the human egocentric mind has distorted this connection between interfaith and environmental harmony through either by greed, possessiveness, overconsumption, and mass globalization. So we can see that Mother Earth selflessly cares. And if we added just love into everything we do, we will change the way we understand ourselves, the way we relate to the earth, to the animals, and to each other. So climate change for me is like a result of our unconscious actions. And so we need to educate ourselves to develop an eco-consciousness so that we don't continue to engage in more harmful actions against the earth. We have actually created this mess and this burden on the earth. And so it becomes everybody's responsibility to clean it up. And we have to try collectively in whatever small way we can, whether it's at grassroots levels by changing our daily behavior and lifestyles, or whether it's challenging policymakers at a national or global level. So we have to be willing to transform, to break our negative cyclic patterns and behaviors and unconscious thoughts and actions on the earth. And it's not easy. It's really not easy. It's a journey of self-commitment and self-motivation to always do actions that benefits the earth and humanity. And so in my Hindu faith, we refer to this as Loka Sangraha, which means doing actions for the welfare of humanity. And if we develop a connection between and build a relationship between the earth and ourselves, we begin to understand our unique purpose in it. So also again, in like the Hindu faith, we refer to this as dharma. And we will see that we are just tenants on the planet and we cannot blatantly just destroy it and consume from it all the time. So we begin and to understand and see that it's important to develop an eco-consciousness through an identity of eco-spirituality to create a spiritual connection between human beings and the environment. So eco-spirituality is a term I like a lot and I use a lot. It incorporates having an intuitive and embodied awareness of all of life. And it engages us to see a relationship between person to planet, from the inner to outer landscape, and from the soul to the soil. And so this understanding creates a spiritual connection, and it develops an eco-consciousness of equitable distribution of the burdens of climate change and its mitigation and responsibilities in order to deal with it in a more positive way. And from my work, interfaith work, and my experience and being for the last 13 years in Religions for Peace, I've noticed that faith actors have a more awareness on the climate crisis, and many are working hard for positive climate action. The difficult task is how to communicate it to government, policymakers, and the greater community that is living in unawareness of it. And so people don't understand the ripple effect of a single action. One small action has a vibrational effect on the planet and can either heal or destroy it. So positive climate action through education and holistic actions is important for faith actors and the greater community to imbibe and implement themselves first, and then mobilize others and translate it into actions. So my favorite quote, which I always use in all of my work and my talks, is by Mahatma Gandhi. And he always says, be the change you wish to see in the world. And this is what motivates me for climate action. But as I said, it's a journey, it's an experience, and we have to have the right intention, objectives, and willingness. And so change and transformation starts first in our thoughts, and it filters into our actions. And this is why I am a big fan of climate youth leadership. So for me, young people are the agents of change. They are the current and future leaders and can hold other leaders to accountability. Young eco-activists are instrumental in mitigating in advocacy and influencing sustainable and holistic climate actions. And young eco-activists have the energy, the drive, and the passion to take leadership roles and mobilize positive action in their local communities on a national and a global level. We have to be that example of leadership that the world so needs right now, especially through the climate crisis. For me, the way I see things is that if the world is a big disappointment to us, we take the things we don't like about this world and we try to change it. We have the opportunity to be of service to Mother Earth, to God, to the animals, and to humanity. And no matter how small the action is, positive change starts with small acts of love and care. We start small and we pay it forward. We become that eco-leader and that eco-warrior of love, resilience, faith, courage, light, positivity, and compassion. And I heard Greshma in her earlier presentation echo this. No matter how small the acts are, it has to be of love and care. And this has been our motivational driving force for our interfaith youth climate work in Durban, South Africa. Instead of focusing on the anger and feeding into the negative energy or the negative narratives, we've been trying to focus on the positives. So through this passion, positivity, and love for the earth, its creatures, and humanity, we stay motivated to be this hope of positive climate action. And therefore, our mission statement has been one earth, one humanity, and therefore it is our responsibility. Myself, I had been an instrument in creating the Religions for Peace Interfaith Youth Climate Forum by winning the Youth Peace Prize in 2018. It was born out of the Our Earth, Our Responsibility campaign by Religions for Peace International Global Interfaith Youth Network. Our campaign aimed to educate, engage, and advocate, and so far has been effective to spread awareness on climate change through positive community projects and interfaith dialogues. We try to educate the youth and community at large by showing how to translate this awareness into climate actions through various creative and fun activities. So our Religions for Peace Interfaith Youth Climate Forum incorporated and engaged in many action plans. And I want to share these strategic action plans with you so that it can inspire you with creative ideas and also create a movement in your country for youth climate advocacy and leadership. So I will share my presentation now with screen sharing, and I will share these 7 strategic plans that I created and implemented with divine guidance. Being an instrument in interfaith youth climate work, I found that the most important aspect of multi-sectorial collaboration is that it must be in conversation with God, a higher being, and Mother Earth. And for me, partnerships are very important because we cannot work in isolation. And when we work in partnerships and not in isolation, we make greater strides and greater progress. Basically, the way we've been calling it is planting seeds of love for Mother Earth, human climate action, and advocacy and leadership. And we have a Facebook page and a youth blog and a YouTube account, which I will share with you a bit later. But let me go through the strategy plans. So strategy number 1 is education. We engage in various climate change educational talks. We've had various educational school programs with many kids. There's been assembly talks, or whether we worked with like 100 students to 200 students. We did a program like 2 weeks ago, which was with 500 students in assembly area. And basically our talks are, it's fun. It's engaging with them in a different way. So we find creative ways to talk with them. And what we do is we share the resource guide on climate change by Religions for Peace. You can see at the bottom here, this is the book. And we also, I provide posters for the schools as well. And what I do is I share information on the earth meditation that we do with them, and also on certain plants and trees that we propagate. So we literally propagate the vetiver grass and speckbone plant. The speckbone plant is a South African plant, and it takes up literally 99% of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The vetiver grass is also another engineering plant. It helps to purify water, but also it allows to retain soil. So this is good for soil erosion in places where there's flooding and, when banks give away. And the vetiver grass, what's so amazing about it is in the Hindu culture, it's referred to as Kush grass, which is Lord Vishnu's hair. And so it's seen as the grass that we use in most of our prayers and our rituals. So it's very interesting that we've been propagating this grass. And what is also so interesting is that the local African mamas, they use this vetiver grass and they make baskets out of it, they make mats out of it. So they also use it as a way of sustainable income for them. And what we found with the other programs we have to promote education is we have interfaith climate dialogues, we have eco workshops, learning to care for the earth and animals through various religious scriptural teachings. So the resource guide on climate change has like scriptures from each religion that helps us to connect to the earth. And so we're trying to create a different kind of holistic educational system. So on top here, you would see this has been a program we had at Nizam Eco Gardens. And here we had a Christian community that joined us, and we did a lot of planting at the school. And we had a program where people from different organizations shared what they're doing in the local community and how they've created massive vegetable gardens to feed the community. And it was so inspiring because we all got a chance to hear about each other's work, learn from each other, and then feel more inspired to be in the movement. In here, I provide some pictures to show you of the various workshops and educational programs we had. So the first one here you see was, I did a program with EduCare. And here, this was an animal shelter that was burnt down, and we got together, we collected food for the animals, we got the children involved, the parents involved, and we did a program where the organization came and they spoke about the animals and how to look after and care for them. So it was teaching kids from a young age on how to care for animals and for the earth. Then these were other schools that I've attended. I did a lot of school programs with various organizations. Usually Habitat Foundation and Lion Clubs, Durban Host, and Religions for Peace South Africa is involved with us. And each person has their own section to share knowledge with the kids. The one at the bottom is, it happened at the Festival of Alternatives, where it was mostly with the climate youth, climate activists. And so here I did a workshop on scriptures, teaching educational system, connecting to the earth, understanding ourselves, but at the same time, a social media workshop. So how to use social media in a positive way to promote your climate work. And then the last picture here, you would see, this was recently, I did it like 3 weeks ago. This was a workshop with educators. So what I found is that when I was going to the various schools, the educators weren't involved in our programs. And when the educators aren't involved and the teachers aren't involved in the programs, it's like the students are not in like paying much attention. So what I did was I got in partnership with One Voice South Africa, and we arranged for a workshop, and we got about 19 educators and facilitators, and I did a whole 4-hour workshop with them, like understanding our relation to Earth, explaining what climate change is and how they can mobilize their schools and their students to do climate action. So because our funding is limited, so we can't reach out to every rural schools. And so the idea was to get the teachers to educate them and empower them in youth climate advocacy and leadership. And then they can become the key that promotes this in their schools and do projects with the youth. And then strategy 2 was eco-spirituality and eco-consciousness. So we did a lot of interfaith prayers and earth meditation. The earth meditation helps us to improve our connection between humanity and planet Earth. And it's all about offering love, light, and gratitude and positive energy to the people and Mother Earth. And the benefits of this, like any meditation, is increased self-awareness, improve emotional well-being, feeling more grounded, more positive changes in attention, being more positive, better handling stress management, and having a deeper connection to the planet. And so it's about practicing gratitude, being grateful to Mother Earth for all the things that she selflessly gives to us. So we've been promoting the earth meditation a lot. This earth meditation was actually given to me by my guru, Paramamsa Vishwananda, and I've been incorporating it in all our climate programs. So you see the first one here, I did the earth meditation with 500 kids at Inkosi Bombu Secondary School in a township. Here, the second one I did with 3 schools in Phoenix. And then we did with the Creche Educate kids. And then we've been doing also senior programs. So it's not just promoting and engaging with youth. We also engage with the greater community, which is adults. So we actually did a program with Sukya Mahikari and the Baha'i community as well. So in the last picture, you can see here with all the elders and, doing the earth meditation with them as well. Then strategy 3 was community service and food security. We did many beach cleanups. We promote, at all our programs, we give food to people out of our funding, and we only promote vegan food and healthy food. So that way it's also to encourage people to change their habits and their lifestyles. And what we've been doing a lot is, especially in the African country, rural areas and even in the Indian communities, there's a lot of food scarcity. So to have food security, we've been promoting to plant vegetable gardens. So each of our programs, we've been sponsoring vegetables. We've been getting the community together to plant. We've teamed up with Greenpeace, the local Durban group, and we've been doing a demonstration on seeds and how they can propagate seeds again, and how, giving more knowledge about seeds. And then we also teamed up with 360.org and VESA, and we did a compost training. So we had 2 compost trainings so far. So we got all the local mamas from the communities, we got the youth together, and we just got together and we learned how to make our own compost. So it's to encourage and inspire people to start their own food gardens at home. And so we found that this was a way to get people get their hands back into the earth and to want to grow their own food so that it's organic, it's fresh, and it's like coming from your garden. So it's also supporting the local aspects of things. So here I give more pictures of every program we had at schools. We get all the kids together. We get sponsorship for trees. They are planting trees. They're planting vegetable gardens. We're planting flowers to beautify the schools. And we're just like creating one big movement. And you know what's amazing is after every program, I always go with the intention to teach, but I end up learning lots of things myself. And I get really inspired by these kids as well, and their enthusiasm and their passion, and, you know, for them to want to be engaging in nature. And then the fourth strategy was activism, marches, petitions, and veganism. So we engage a lot with social media by promoting and signing petitions. We promoted and signed a petition with Greenpeace South Africa, where due to the floods that happened in Durban last year, all the sewer systems got destroyed. So the sewers was being pumped into the oceans and the rivers, and fishes were dying by tons. And we were trying to get the local municipality to see this, you know, this is urgent and you need to work faster to fix the sewer pumps and all these sewer pipes so that we can prevent disaster happening in our neighborhood and also prevent the increase of E. coli bacteria. So we got involved into a petition. And we also attended the lecture by Mia Mottley. She's the Prime Minister of Barbados. She came to Durban and she did the Nelson Mandela lecture. And so we all also attended it, and she spoke about sustainability, which was very encouraging and it was inspirational. And then the first two pictures just show like we distribute food packs, whether it's biscuits, we distribute food, and at all our programs we use paper that, you know, that's showing to be recycled. We use wooden utensils. We encourage meatless Mondays. We encourage veganism so that we can translate our, you know, actions into positivity. And even too, we tell people, if you can't be vegan, at least eat less meat. Do a meatless Monday. So that way you are contributing in reducing your carbon footprint, because everything adds up at the end of the day. And then the bottom, you would see that we got together. I think there was over 30 organizations that got together, and we did a youth climate march in Durban City Hall. And here we were protesting against the fracking of Shell. Shell wanted to frack the oceans nearby. And so we were trying to, you know, bring attention to municipality to say, you know, we are against this. So, and then the last picture shows we had a beach cleanup. And then strategy 5 was creativity. So to engage people, we're always looking for creative ways to engage people. So we work with a lot of art projects, creative writing, vegan cooking. We do a lot of earth song and dance. Sometimes we do it in the Zulu language. We celebrated World Ocean Day and World Environmental Day through art competitions. We engage in online vegan cooking webinars, teaching people about the earth, you know. And so our workshops encourages a lot of group participation as well. So there's been icebreakers, team building, group exercises, climate pledges, poetry and storytelling. We found that poetry and storytelling is a very good way of developing an eco autobiography, and it brings about a lot of reflection as well. So we do a lot of self-analysis and group exercises. And this helps to develop that eco-consciousness and develop that eco-spirituality to build a relationship and understand your relationship to the earth, to nature, and how you can find that connection for yourself. So the first picture shows some artwork from some schools. The first picture on this slide also shows Ocean Day artwork that we had. And the bottom slides show like we've given prizes and certificates to all the students that attended. And you know what amazed me? I went to a really poor school, and one of the kids, we called her name and we gave her a prize and a certificate, and she was crying. And I was like so touched by it, because I didn't understand how the small act was a way of encouraging them to learn and learn about climate change and about the earth and find that connection for themselves. And then the second picture at the top is we went to a disabled school. And this was amazing because at the school, these kids don't have hands and legs, but they were so engaged in our program and they wanted to learn. They listened to all our talks. They did the earth meditation with us. And then what we did is we collected old tires. We brought it to the school and we did an art project with the kids and we got them to paint it. And then we planted vegetables in it and they loved it. And it was so amazing because they were kids that didn't have legs, but they got off their wheelchair and they went on the floor and engaged with us in this project. So I found it very, very inspirational. Strategy number 6 was multi-faith intergenerational partnerships. So we always try to be inclusive, working with youth, seniors, and various organizations to build interfaith partnerships and friendships. And we want to show that multi-faith solidarity. So our programs has been in partnership with various organizations. As mentioned before, Greenpeace Durban, Local Grove, Habitat Foundation, the Lions Durban Club, VESA360.org, the Phoenix Gandhi Settlement. We actually did a program at Phoenix Gandhi Settlement. You'll see it, the first one, where we shared about Mahatma Gandhi's teachings, and Ms. Ella Gandhi was there and she gave a talk, and it was a really wonderful day for all of us. And what we found is when we work in partnerships, we make greater progress. And also we are able to help and support each other because the other organizations may not have funding and I may have funding. So I'll provide the lunch, I'll provide the trees. And if the other organizations will be like, okay, I can provide like spec-borne plants. And so they provide spec-borne plants for all my events as well. So it becomes a partnership of helping and supporting each other. And then the last strategy is the social media and networking. So everybody is always on their phone and it's a digital age and people are glued to their phone. So we take advantage of that. We've got YouTube accounts, Facebook accounts, we got a blog, and we using social media, WhatsApp and Telegram, and we want to inspire people, motivate people, and mobilize people into action. And what was amazing was our youth blog was recognized by SAFC, which is a South African Faith Communities Environmental Institute, as a social healing response to help the youth and community. Because what I did was I've got youth that were affected by the floods in Durban, and I got them to write about it and relate it back to these scriptures and back to the teachings and understanding the lessons in it and share it with everyone. And as you can see, the first picture is the EcoPeace Teen Café, which we were with Greshma, and she invited me to be on and talk about my work as well. We also attended POD conference. It was the annual Forum on Religion and Sustainable Development 2022 conference, and I also gave two talks as well. And so there's lots of potential for online to be involved in webinars and giving talks. These are just some of our previous webinars. We did one where we did for Earth Day. We had ETH Youth sharing about their religion and their faith and relating it back to the earth and how we can connect to it. We did also another webinar for World Environmental Day about how we can move values into action and what is our faith teaching us. And then also the network of change, I think it's the Peacemakers Change of Network or something. Sorry, I think I got the name wrong. But the World Council of Churches, they invited us for a webinar to talk there as well, to see youth as agents of change and how we can inspire and mobilize people. And then the other two webinars, the first one was with Religions for Peace International and Yale University. And we all read the book, Religion and Ecology. And so we had a discussion about it, which was a great learning experience. And the last one is with SAFC as well, partnering up with them and also learning from the indigenous and traditional people that were present at their webinars and learning from traditions as well. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share. I hope that whatever I shared with you, inspires for youth action, youth leadership, youth mobilization.
I also have familiar faces tonight here, like AJ, Mr. Don De Silva, Nicole. They are all names who have participated as speakers in our previous My Faith in Environment series.
My name is Don De Silva. I was a former director of the United Nations Environment Program. I also attended the 1972 United Nations Conference on the Human Environment, the First Earth Summit, and then worked with UNEP for quite a while. Really going to encourage Religions for Peace to continue with this work, Edda, in terms of what you're doing with My Faith in the Environment. It is through dialogues like this, and I hope that the information that has been given in this discussion will be disseminated much more widely. Just to say that as this is taken within the ambit of faith and the environment, I just like to point out to you that the initiator in the United Nations, who first in 1979 called for and gave proposals to establish the First Earth Summit, reading the environmental protests that were going around in 1968-69, was the third Secretary General of the United Nations, and that's U Thant. He was a devout Buddhist, and he read the worldwide environmental concerns at the time and then presented a paper, the Report on the Human Environment, which led to the creation of the Earth Summit and then UNEP and all the other initiatives that have taken place in the world since then. But of course, before that, I'd like to also just say in passing that the Buddha, some 2,500 years ago, highlighted the interdependence of phenomena and the linkages between conditions and phenomena, between people and nature at great length. But also, one important thing which the Buddha highlighted is the need for inclusivity in terms of ensuring that we have people from all backgrounds, disadvantaged communities, going beyond caste in particular, beyond race, and also highlighting the importance of the liberation of women in the whole area of dealing with climate change, because the Glasgow Summit Declaration highlighted this holistic approach. I'd like to also just point out that in many ways, or also before going into it, just to inform you that the first climate change meeting was organized by my former boss in 1974. Now, there are always in the environment movement the ups and the downs, and we have had to go through many attempts at trying to belittle the environment movement or belittle climate change. But it is fantastic to see now that there is much greater acceptance by the powers that be about the importance of sustainability and climate change. It was not the case then. And some of us who highlighted sustainability issues in the world arena paid a heavy price for doing so in our own careers and so on. Also, what is important is that this requires both the efforts of the old and the young. I'd like to also point out to the younger ones that there are a number of older people who didn't sit back and do nothing. They also took the initiatives to take action. And it is also as a result of those that you see the benefits of greater awareness concerning climate change and outlining sustainability across the world and the actions that it has highlighted. I'd like to just end by saying that faith and environment are two sides of the same coin. You cannot initiate sustainability or bring about climate change or the positive aspects to deal with climate change without the world of faith and without the world of values. They both go together, and there has to be a paradigm shift in the thinking of the world in terms of a value-based shift to deal with climate change and bring about sustainability across the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Nicole Travnicek, she was one of our speakers at part 1 of the My Faith and Environment. And Nicole, sorry for spotting you now, but I'm interested in finding out, how your work is going forward. I know you are very passionate and you are doing great job in this field.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole. I'm from the Brahma Kumaris, and thank you for your inspirations and everything that you shared tonight. So as I said, I'm from the Brahma Kumaris, and lately we have done various events. So either you know about previous ones, but lately, just for example, for the World Environment Day, internationally, there were different activities and events organized. So we have a variety of meditation centers all over the world, really. So that took place. And then recently also in the UK, we had a green audit of all the meditation centers. So the people who were the head of the meditation center, if you would want to call it like that, they organized a meeting with all their regular students, and they were kind of discussing what things could be improved regarding the environment and concrete steps forwards. So that was also really productive to do, like in your community. I found that really productive and effective to sit down with your own community and think about what we ourselves could improve. Then we also have a training which is called Green Champions Training, and this is fairly new. I think it was first developed last year, and this is basically to educate and empower regular students of the Brahma Kumaris in environmental matters, so that then they can also hold like talks or organize workshops for other people, but it's mainly thought for the community. So there is more education available within the organization itself. And there's also a meditation organized every month, which is called the Green Wave Meditation, which is organized online. And it's kind of like a dual poll where you can add your at least 15-minute slot. Everyone can put their name down for a 15-minute slot. So that would mean that you dedicate your 15 minutes of meditation for nature. And that's quite nice in the way of that. It's really like a green wave where, there's special thought given to nature. So I find that very nice as well, and connecting as a community. I think these were the latest developments.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for sharing your part. AJ is from our part 2, My Faith and Environment. And
hi, everyone. Very glad to join you. So I'm AJ. I'm based in the UK. I'm based in London, and I'm the national coordinator for Young Humanists UK. So humanism, for those who don't know, is a non-religious movement that's based on science, reason, human empathy, and it seeks to give a worldview and a perspective and a holistic way of life for people who don't belong to a religious faith. So I think it falls under the category of a faith and belief system. And humanism is a worldwide movement. It has roots in many parts of the world, but also has a very deep root in the UK. And for us, I mean, just from the UK context, we can see that in some ways, the figures and demographics show us that religion is declining. The 2019 figures of one survey, the British Social Attitude Survey, show that 70% or so of 18 to 25-year-olds in the UK have no daily relevance or identity towards a religious faith at all. Now, that's I personally, even though I'm not religious myself, that's still a big part of I like working with religions, and I'm a big believer in interfaith cooperation. So whether that's a good, how we feel about that is a good thing or a bad thing, I think there's the reason why I'm part of humanist volunteering efforts is to make sure that those people, if they feel they're spiritual but not religious, or they're just completely secular, or they're atheist or agnostic or whatever they are, that they're still involved in campaigns like this for things as crucial as the environment or anti-war and many other campaigns that humanists run. And humanists very much value human rights, peace, democracy, accountability, women's rights, LGBT plus rights, etc. And environmentalism is very much a part of that. And maybe a bit too late in the humanist movement in the UK, at least. I'm not sure if there's humanist movements in the countries that you're based, but I would encourage you to get in touch with them, especially in the West and Western countries, maybe not so much in other parts of the world, because this secular tendency is increasing. And I think building bridges and working with a possibly increasing parts of a demographic which is non-religious or doesn't fall into the major world religions is important to make sure that we don't lose traction in gaining the next generation's participation in environmental movements. So we founded Humanist Climate Action, which is one section of Humanist UK. I'm from Young Humanist, that's one section, mainly focused on youth. But there's also Humanist Climate Action in the UK that was founded in 2021. Probably should have been a bit earlier. And we just actually come from our national conference a few weeks ago in Liverpool, where there was given some motions and national recognition and voted through how urgent it is. And we've done many of the, not quite as extensive as all of the lovely stories that you've shared, but tree planting, certainly lobbying, campaigning, social media campaigns, to, in some sense, our battle is to try and persuade a perhaps disenfranchised, certainly youth contingent, but also middle-aged people in the UK who are increasingly becoming disenfranchised with movements, campaigns. I think Merylene mentioned social media negativity. We're trying to combat that, and especially if people don't have a religious faith, to say, well, you still need to be part of a movement. You still need to fight for things. Otherwise, if you're just sort of none of the above and you let things just pass you by, then unfortunately, the people with the power brokers and the in society, and I think Don also mentioned climate change skepticism and things like that, they will gain more traction because they are very organized. So that's a big part of our campaigning, is to actually reach out to people who do consider themselves humanist, or humanist in all but name. They don't call themselves humanists, but they're none of the above. I'm not Christian, I'm not Muslim, I'm not Hindu, and so on. But okay, but here's an identity that is based on science, reason, not necessarily a belief in God. Whatever you want, it's your individual choice. We support and tolerate and work with all faith and belief backgrounds. But if you are a humanist, we're trying to get them activated and involved in humanist climate action. That's kind of the story from the UK perspective. So feel free to reach out through Edda or directly to me. I'll leave my email in the chat, and hope to contribute and work more with Religions for Peace going forward.
Thank you, AJ.
Thank you. Good evening. Happy to be with you. I'll use my camera. I'm not quite where there's light. I'm from Cameroon. So happy to be part of this movement, and especially talking about climate change and sustainable development. I should rather say I was ignorant of it, and while joining an organization back here, an association, Family Health and Development Foundation, I got to be taught on climate change, reason why I'm even on this meeting. And just recently, we have planted some trees here in Cameroon, Yaoundé, of course, in one of the communities. And I should rather say, I appreciate so much what we have been doing so far and what we have been taught on how to sustainably protect our environment. I should say I was inspired when I saw our dad sharing his experience on climate and protecting our climate, going along with our faith, because we should say that we cannot separate climate with faith. And I'm happy to be part of you and believing to learn more as time goes on. So I want to appreciate all of you, and even thanks to FADEF, which have given me an opportunity also to be learning on climate change and to Madam Sikala, who is also connected. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Akam.
I think in India, especially, we are talking more about river conservation, and also like these are the things we are like constantly hear about, and also we are more concerned about, and also like marine ecosystem, like especially we are from the coastal area, like I'm from the south, and we are having the coastal like sea rise as a big issue, and also there are like lots of faith connection in it, like especially when we talk about Kerala coastal region, there is like a predominantly Christian communities are living there. So it's also like I can see the interconnection between how the faith groups are coming up for their rights, and also talking about the lack of resources, and also they are really worried about the wild fishing, and also the plastic pollution, like marine pollution. So these are the I feel these are the hot topics that we are having, and also the protests and organizations are mostly working on these issues that are coming up, and they are pressing more for preventing the use of plastics and trying to clean up the beaches. So these are more actions are happening at this part of the world. And also there are issues of coal, but I feel like they are like more unaddressed, like people are not coming, I'm not saying not coming up or generalizing things, but it's not visible. Maybe there are activities, but it's still like not that much visible. But the things about like conservation and ecosystem restoration are more visible, and young people are more keen on like what's happening at the coastal or river areas, like river conservation.
Thank you, Greshma. Dr. Leland or Merylene, would you like to add on to this question?
I'd like to just say something, Ira. Just to touch on one remark made by Mr. Don. You know, he spoke about careers and how sustainability and climate change has affected many careers, and it wasn't a thing that was recognized in the past as compared to it being recognized now, and seeing that the urgency and the importance of it. Like, I'm also an architectural technologist, and I work with social and sustainable architecture. And yeah, I totally agree with what he says. Like, in terms of career, we've been promoting sustainability and green technology for ages, and it hasn't been recognized or taken seriously, especially like I can say in South Africa, because the systems are still coal movement. The systems are not looking into like the solar energy and tapping into wind power and recycling of water. I mean, the current situation I experience every day for 2 years now, we get water shedding. For 8 hours in a day, we don't have water. Currently, like today, the whole of today, I had no water. And also we experience the other thing called load shedding, where we don't have electricity. So we get like 4 to 6 hours of power cuts every day. And it's like, you can see that the system is trying to say, do things differently, you know, look at different ways, innovation technologies. I was talking to one person from Habitat Foundation, and they were saying the vertical grass, they actually did an experiment where they could use it to replace coal to provide energy. And even to in all our projects, like we use biodigesters, even in our architectural projects, we use recycling of rainwater systems. And, you know, we created our own biodigester. You take your offcuts and waste from your kitchen, your vegetables, you put it in the biodigester, and you get gas to cook for you. So there's so many systems. There's so many innovative ways of doing things. There's even fossils. But it's like nobody is willing to go that extra mile to explore it. There was one company I know that takes computer parts and old computers, and they recycle it into tiles, and they actually use it to build roofs. And even to, like, we found by using the technology of earth bricks that or just orientating your building to face north, that in winter it is completely warm and in summer it's completely cool, that there's no need for air conditioning or heaters. It just brings down the whole radiant energy of your building. So, but the challenge is the system is so used to doing the things the way it does that it hasn't seen that the climate is changing, the world is changing, and we need to adapt and change to a more resilient way of doing things. So I found that this to be very challenging in my profession because it's still the old system way of doing things. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on what AJ commented about humanist, in terms of, not relating to a religion. I found that so intriguing because at the World Assembly, 10th World Assembly in Lindau, I was on a youth media team and I did a lot of interviews with a lot of people. And there were a lot of people that were atheists or didn't belong to a religion. But they were actually there with Religions for Peace, being part of the organization and movement by just wanted to be part of the community service and the various topics that AJ commented on, whether it's gender-based violence or all these movements because they want to be part of it. So it's interesting. And what I found that these people, the more I engaged with them and I spoke with them, they were actually very spiritual, even though they didn't associate themselves to a religion. And the last thing I want to comment on is AJ's comment about the Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil. I did see some of those youth videos where they were like using paint and vandalizing on stuff. And, when I looked at it, for me, it was like, when I work with my youth work, for me, it's about what are the movement we want to create and what positives are we putting in the movement. So for us, it's been like trying to direct that energy and that action into a positive way. We had a huge march, as I mentioned earlier, with 30 organizations, and Just Stop Oil is part of it, and including Extinction Rebellion. And they were part of it, and they were like, we marched with them, and we signed memorandums, and we had court cases, with people to talk about like these oil productions and all these companies that's polluting and stuff. So, but what I found is when I did that workshop at a Festival of Alternatives, I met a lot of angry activists. Angry activists are people that are passionate, but they're just so angry about everything. They don't know how to redirect their energy. And so that is why I also believe, as Don said, you can't exclude faith from the environment. Faith is important to the environment because it also gives a grounding, a sense of understanding the holistic picture. And in one of our workshops, when we went through each faith and each teaching, everybody had a certain appreciation, even though they didn't belong to a faith or they didn't relate to a faith, but we saw the appreciation of other people's beliefs as well and how they would connect to the earth. So I found this is to be a way of redirecting and channeling the negative energy into a positive way, in a small way, in a local way, where we're working.
Thank you, Merylene. I see a couple of hands. I'm so sorry that I kept you waiting. Vasu, would you like to share your bit or ask your question?
Thank you so much, Ida. Yes, of course. I would like to share. I'm Vasu Bandhu. I serve as a monk in the Buddhist community, and I also serve in the International Youth Committee of Religions for Peace. So I would like to share that I'm based in United States. I'm Mexican, but here in United States, we are working on heat relief because the extreme heat in the state of Arizona have killed people. So I wonder if you may have any experiences in your countries or other countries in which you experience extreme heat, and how do you community responds to the extreme heat? Thank you.
I'm trying to be also mindful of time. Vasu, if that's okay, I'll take also Francois's question or story so she can share, and then maybe our speakers can answer very briefly both of the questions. if that's okay. Hi, Frances. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. Mindful of time, I'll really be brief, and it's another exciting opportunity to be here. There are many faces that I do recognize. We've been working closely with EcoPeace Teen Café, with Greshma in many youth programs, both in the English and the French-speaking zone, as well as Nelly. And I'm glad that Edwin is here and he's sharing. He's one of our youths that is really picking up what we are doing in our organization. And he's already training other children in the climate. And recently for the Environmental Day, we did plant some fruit trees that are also used for medicinal. That is the moringa tree that is used for food as vegetables and also as a medicinal plant. And not only did we plant it, we also shared to the neighbors in the community, because we are really community-based. We also shared to some neighbors to plant as well. And so for us, it was planting the tree of love, and we gather the children to extend some love to them. At the end of this exercise, we had to share some dresses with the children in the community and some food, and we played games. So it was an exciting opportunity. And in our organization, we started a food processing, seeing the way post-harvest waste is really, really high. And so we are looking forward to building a biodigester if we have the funding, because we are already producing a lot of waste from the food that we do process. And so it will be very interesting if we have a biodigester that will help in managing the waste that comes out from all these the foods and the vegetables that we do produce. And so you can see why I was so excited with the first presenter when Leland was talking about bio waste. I could really see how whenever I hear of waste, I know waste is not waste. Waste is very important. Waste can really be used. But in our very, very local community, we need to empower quite a lot of children and homes. We're also trying to see how we will train the different families in the communities, how to select this waste. If we will be using their waste in the future, we have to train them how to select the waste and how to separate the waste that can be used for us and really keep the environment healthy. So thank you again. It was exciting, and we look forward to sharing again more opportunities as we support each other in collaboration.
Yeah, definitely. I can touch a bit on the bio-waste stuff. So I think there's enormous potential, and I think it's great how you said it's not waste. So we just have to think about different ways to utilize these products. And I think that biodigesters are awesome. I think just generally, if there's waste, it would be great to have more trials around the world where people take that waste and use it, kind of spread it out over an empty field where they're trying to restore it, and just see if that helps to regenerate ecosystems. Because we found essentially that it can attract insects, and then that attracts birds, which bring seeds, and then help to basically grow the forest back on its own. And we've had examples of this with just some kind of byproducts of agricultural production, but there's also some really cool work that's being done in the temperate zone, actually using sewage waste. And it's been tremendously helpful to actually compost it and spread that out and use it as a forest restoration tool as well. So I think there's tons and tons of different ways that you can use this stuff. But again, like echoing what you said, it's not waste. We just need to repurpose our resources and basically think about how to be more efficient with what we have, rather than just essentially discarding it.
Yes, it just falls on me to thank our speakers. Because Merylene, we thank you for being the heart of what we're trying to do. I do realize that not everybody takes faith and belief in the same way, but we have the same goal. So thank you for bringing us through the spirituality, and to recognize the importance of the eco awareness amongst us, because we are aiming at the same thing. And Dr. Leland, your science is always very, not only convincing, but it propels us to do things that has a real impact. So it particularly talks to me when you say that the monitoring and the reporting of the work that needs to get together so that we know that we are together, because we all go around doing our own things. And I can see Meryleen's projects going on to your map that says what has been done, and things like that. If we can pull together, we are stronger. So hopefully that would in all levels happen. And taking from your know-how of the science involved, all the stories of how an individual can also take part, not just that they are big corporations or big projects, but each individual, if we can start to accumulate sort of like a know-how or what we can do as individuals, as small groups, as bigger groups, and then we can go on to form a movement and then report it back so that we can all share the stories and be encouraged by each other. That would be a really good way forward. And that's when Greshma comes in with your reach to the young people, to the open cafe that you will be running for us. Getting people to buy into the story is not difficult. Getting people to act on it is a little bit more difficult. Getting people to report on it, we will then start to become a movement. And for that, I have all our speakers to thank, all our participants to thank. We may not be a very big group, but we know that we have each other's support in taking the work forward. And for that, I'm truly grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I think I will conclude this webinar with your closing remarks. Thank you so much all for making this event very insightful, and thank you for joining us. Hopefully, I will see you all very soon in our next coming event.